Hello, readers. Our next book of the day is All the Way to the Top. How One Girl's Fight for Americans with Disabilities Changed Everything. And prior to the story, the author has written a foreword, which is a beginning to the story that gives us some schema, that gives us some background knowledge and some understanding before we start the story. So I'm going to read the foreword to you. Dear readers, I was born with cerebral palsy, which means that I use a wheelchair to help me get around every day. From a young age, I learned that buses, museums, libraries, and even schools that were accessible to my able-bodied peers were not accessible to me because there were no wheelchair ramps. Imagine not being able to join in with your friends because you can't get into the building where they're meeting. I felt left out and did not like being separated from everyone, especially my younger sister, Kaylee. As my family and I realized that people with disabilities were not treated as equally as able-bodied people, we decided to join the disability rights movement to help change things for the better. I participated in my very first protest in Phoenix, Arizona in 1987 when I was 6 years old. This was the first time I saw other people with disabilities protesting for their right to be recognized as equals. At first, I didn't know quite what to think, but after carefully observing the adults at this protest, both my sister and I realized that people with disabilities had the right to be treated like everyone else, and that Kaylee and I did not have to be separated. As one of the very few young children who got to be closely involved in the disability rights movement, I recognized that I had a very important responsibility placed upon me. I wasn't just representing myself, I was also representing my generation and future generations of children with disabilities who also felt left out as they struggled for the same rights as everyone else. It was my responsibility that led me to participate in a big protest called the Capitol Crawl, a decision that a lot of people say helped convince Congress to pass an important law for the disability rights movement, and it's called the Americans with Disabilities Act. I hope that by sharing my story, kids everywhere will see that you don't have to be a grown-up to make a difference. If you believe in something, say it loud for everyone to hear. The passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act was a big win for the disability rights movement, but we still have a long way to go, and I hope using my voice to speak up for what I think is right, you can too. On the way up. Jennifer Keelan may be small, but her voice is mighty. Yee-haw! Snowball responds, speeding up from a walk to a trot. Jennifer loves to go fast, but she knows she'll soon have less time for riding since she's finally old enough for school. She can't wait to make friends. She's ready to go. The school's not far. Jennifer rolls outside, down the sidewalk to the corner. But stop! A 4-inch curb. A 4-inch curb cliff to someone who uses a wheelchair. Her grandpa eases her wheelchair over the curb. Though the drop jolts Jennifer, she makes it to the building. But stop! The school says Jennifer doesn't belong there because she uses a wheelchair. Instead, Jennifer and her mom find a different school that says she can attend kindergarten, but only for part of the afternoon when lunch is over. As Jennifer rolls in each day, everyone is already busy. She has to figure out what's going on and how to join in. Since most kids have never met someone who uses a wheelchair, her classmates are confused and even a little afraid. "You'll never be one of us," some of them say. Jennifer knows they're wrong. She's just a friend waiting to happen. But how do you change someone's mind? She's not sure, but she's not about to give up. Jennifer and her family hear about activists who are working to make sure people with disabilities have access to public places like schools. They want to know more, so they attend a strategy meeting. Jennifer has never seen anything like it. The room is full of grown-ups with all sorts of disabilities. Some use wheelchairs, some use canes. None of them are sitting around waiting for things to change. They're shouting, laughing, and planning a big protest to get wheelchair lifts on buses. They turn to Jennifer. "Do you want to come?" Yes, she wants to go. Downtown, Jennifer rolls to the microphone and tells her story. She leads marchers through the streets chanting, "The people united will never be defeated." It feels good to speak up for what she believes in. She can't wait to do it again. She's raring to go. She protests in Phoenix, rolls through streets in San Francisco, waves signs in Montreal. The demonstrations don't always change people's minds, but Jennifer is used to that. Even when her neighborhood school finally agrees she can attend, she and her classmates with disabilities aren't allowed to eat in the cafeteria with everyone else. That hurts, but she keeps going. Working with other activists revs her up, yet she can't help noticing that she and her sister are really the only kids out there raising their voices. Still, she can't leave all the protesting to grown-ups. She knows firsthand that children with disabilities get ignored too, so she keeps speaking up. When Jennifer is 8, activists propose a new law called the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. The law insists schools, governments, and businesses make room for all people, including those with disabilities. Jennifer feels like dancing. If it passes, it means sidewalks with curb cuts, buildings with ramps in addition to steps, and elevators with braille panels. It means Jennifer and her classmates with disabilities can finally go to the cafeteria with everyone else for lunch. Jennifer and her family watch the news for updates on the ADA, but reporters never mention it. She switches off the TV in frustration, wishing she could change reporters' minds on what's worth talking about. Instead, the Keenelans get their updates about the ADA when activists' friends call. It's bad news. Members of Congress say that the law will be too complicated and too expensive. They say it's just not worth it. since the news station is ignoring people with disabilities. Jennifer and her friends are determined to find another way to make Congress hear their voices. It's go time. Her family buys plane tickets to Washington, D.C. As they march down Pennsylvania Ave, Jennifer has never shouted louder. What do we want? The ADA. When do we want it? Now. Finally, they reach the U.S. Capitol. But stop. A mountain of steps block Jennifer and other people using wheelchairs from the building where Congress makes laws. Grown-ups slide out of their wheelchairs and start pulling themselves up the steps. They will make sure members of Congress know they are here. Jennifer's heart races. This is what she has been shouting about. I want to climb the steps, she says. But stop. The grown-ups think she's too young. You can't do it. Jennifer knows this is not just about her. It's about her friends at school who were shut out of the cafeteria at lunch. It's about millions of other kids she's never met who get stopped at every turn. Jennifer wants to speak up for all the kids with disabilities who aren't there. I need to climb those steps. She slides out of the wheelchair, scoots along the sidewalk to the bottom of the stairway, and puts her hands on the first step. She hauls herself up. Tiny bits of dirt and rock dig into her skin. She drags herself up another step. The crowd roars. Reporters surround her with cameras and microphones recording her gusty climb. I'll take all night if I have to, she vows. And she keeps heaving, hauling, dragging herself up those steps. She keeps going, all the way to the top. Handicapped stage, crawl in, protest up steps of Capitol. Pictures of Jennifer climbing the step flashed around the world. Reporters start talking about the ADA. Members of Congress see the news. They listen to the activists and finally pass the ADA. Laws like the ADA don't change things overnight. Entrances have to be rebuilt. Sidewalks have to be redesigned. Buses re-engineered. Slowest of all, minds have to change. So Jennifer will continue shouting and waving signs, organizing and explaining. She will continue fighting for what she knows is right. Jennifer has places to go, and nothing will stop her now. Here are some pictures. It shows Jennifer, of her climbing up those steps, boys and girls. Look at that. Look at that drive. Look at that inner perseverance. I'm going to do this. I am going to reach the top for myself, for others, for my rights. And that is titled All the Way to the Top. How one girl's fight for Americans with disabilities changed everything.